This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Who's got it better than us?
Nobody.
You got a date with justice.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Brandon Justice. Welcome into the Justice Report, Iowa Week. You can follow me on Twitter at Land of Justice. You can follow the podcast at Detroit Podcast. You can find us on Podomatic. You found us somehow, but tell your friends. Let everybody know what's going on. Thank you guys for tuning in for another week. The season is flying by. I don't like it. There's only 3 games left in the regular season. Of course, Michigan fans hopeful that there's actually 6 games left. If you take in the Big Ten title game and the semifinal, and then obviously the national championship, then there will be 6 games. That'll put us at a prolonged season, which for fans is good, but for me, I want to watch more football. And I want to be there. I mean, that'd be cool to be able to go to the title game, and that'd be a cool credential to keep up your pocket. But this week it's Iowa. A lot of things happened this week outside of football that I want to talk about for a second. Obviously, the election happened. I mean, obviously, every Tuesday, I think it's the first Tuesday, November 8th, every 4 years, somebody gets elected, whether you like it or not. Somebody gets elected. Last time that somebody got elected, the biggest issue was Mitt Romney's money, where it was, how it was being used, how his father managed Michigan back when he was the governor. Before that, the biggest issue was how old John McCain was and how black Barack Obama was. And this time, the biggest issue was about 100 things. From the emails to the tax returns, the covered up this and that. Probably the dirtiest election since ever. I mean, there's probably been plenty of countries where it's been worse, and that's what I want to kind of transition into for this issue, because I want to knock it out. I want to get it out of the way. I don't have a stance on it when it comes to one person or the other, but I do have a stance.
This country are furious.
but I do have a stance on how ridiculous this has been. One side of things, and I don't want to say any names on who, not these people, but these groups are, they preach this and that about Donald Trump not doing this and Donald Trump not doing that, and their answer is to riot. So contradicting. And then on the other side of things, there's been some really bad things said by these Donald Trump people as well. And it's a country.
Why?
And I know that a country divided could be used, but it's not. It's a very small percentage doing stupid things. But what we're failing to realize is we're in America. I can come to Doc's studio and throw this podcast up, and you guys get to listen to it. And I can say these things, and I can make a stance on freedom, and I can make a stance on the election, and I could sit here and be opinionated about it too, and no one's going to get in trouble. People are protesting, our president, and they're not getting killed. I mean, he's not our president-elect, but, they're not getting killed. In other countries, that doesn't fly. I'm sorry. But if this country is so bad, and you are so unhappy with how things are, then I invite you to go to another foreign country and try and protest their world leader and see what happens. Protest Putin. Should be a blast. Russian prison, I heard it's pretty solid. Go to Canada, try and immigrate there. The immigration laws are way stricter, my friends. That's just how it is. And I'm not taking sides in either candidate because it's over with. And that's another thing. Don't dwell. You can't do anything anymore. You had your chance to vote. A lot of you didn't. I think this was the lowest voting rate in years, decades. So if you didn't do something about it, then don't complain. And if you did, it's over. There's nothing you can do now. We had the chance. We get to vote. We choose our country's leader. Our country's leader does not choose us, which is what happens in plenty of other countries. So if you want a prime minister, if you want a queen, a king, a dictator, an ISIS, then leave. No one's stopping you. Defeat those immigration laws, because America is still a great country, and it's terrible to say that it isn't. America isn't full of hate. The world is full of hate, and that's not Donald Trump's fault. That's not Hillary Clinton's fault. Do they contribute to it? Yeah, but everyone else does too. I mean, I'm sure there's people that haven't. I'm sure there's great people in this world that haven't. But there's hate. It's around us. It's everywhere. And that's on us to fix it. So don't go around blaming Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton. Don't blame the Republican who lives next to you or the liberal who lives across the street. Look at yourself and make a change. Don't ask others to fix it. Try and fix it yourself. And encourage others to help you fix it. Once we start looking at ourselves in the mirror, then things will get better. But if you want to talk about America being this terrible country, then move elsewhere and see how bad it is. And that's all I'm going to say about it. It's ridiculous. And that's my stance. Again, not one candidate or the other. You won't find any tweets on my Twitter about politics. I'm not going to say one thing or that's not my stance. I don't cover politics. I cover football because I have the freedom to do that. Because freedom of press is a thing too here, by the way. Freedom of speech, print, all those things. So that's what I have to say about it. And this isn't something that I want to use as a question, and I want interactiveness or whatever the word would be. I don't want responses. I just want you to know that's where I'm at with it. And I want it to end. Just cut it off. It's over with. Don't dwell. Move forward. If you're not rooting for Donald Trump, you're not rooting for the country. And if you're not rooting for the country, then just go. It's pretty simple. If it gets to the point where it's that bad, then impeach the guy. We have that power too. We elect him. He doesn't choose us. So enough of you voted for him, enough of you didn't vote for it to happen. And that's that. So anyways, away from that, moving on. Got a little bit of off bounds there, which is good. And I'm happy I got to say that. I'm actually happy I didn't really stutter my words that much. That was kind of good. That's pretty good. That wasn't rehearsed, by the way, guys. So it's Iowa week, Michigan and the Hawkeyes. Again, you can find all of my words in writing on land10.com. Download the app on the Apple Store. It's also on Google Play now if you have an Android. Just search Land of 10, numerical 10, and you'll find it. land10.com/Michigan for all your Michigan stuff. Myself and Rachel Lindsay. And then if you just want to care about the conference, you want to learn more about the conference as well. If you want to learn more about the opponent, it's land10.com. But now it's time to move on. Now it's time to talk football. That's why we're all here. That's why we're excited to be here. But I need to say a sentence before that about baseball because I just want to say that if Miguel Cabrera or Justin Verlander or get traded, I am moving my fandom. They are Mount Rushmore players in Tigers history. And it makes sense to trade one of them. It really does. I mean, from a logical standpoint, it makes sense to probably trade both of them. Or does it not? It doesn't, because they're Mount Rushmore players. Keep one of them, trade one of them. I don't care, but don't trade both of them. You can't get rid of both. I think that inevitably it's going to happen. Not both. I think inevitably one of them are gone. But my favorite players in the Tigers are Cabrera, Verlander, and Kinsler. And the fact that all three of them could be gone sucks. It sucks. I grew up a fan of the Tigers when they had Bobby Higginson. How bad that team was. And Brandon Inge was that catcher. And I got privileged. I think we were all privileged enough to see the teams with Maglio Ordonez and, Jim Leland coaching them to the World Series. And it all sucked for us when Brett Ausmus got hired because he was given gold and he somehow made it bronze. And now it's all the way down to copper. So it sucks. I've always been on the fire Brett Ausmus campaign. It's not happening this year unless it happens midseason, and I really don't think they're going to expect much from him. So he might be here for a long time. But I think Jacoby Jones is a good future. And if anybody should be traded, maybe trade Jose Iglesias. I think you might be able to get a good return for him. I mean, who are you going to put at shortstop, though? So there's questions. Baseball is what I played my entire life, so I know a lot about it. But as far as the Tigers farm system and all that, I don't, admittedly, because I don't cover it or anything like that. But as far as baseball goes, I do know a lot about it. So if I'm the Tigers, I would trade somebody, maybe two players. I would try my best to trade Justin Upton. I would try extremely hard because that solves a lot of your issues. Get rid of Upton, get rid of Verlander. Get a huge return for Verlander. It sucks. It really sucks that you're losing him. But you have a good enough staff with Boyd and Norris at the bottom, along with Fulmer, those rookies. You still have Jordan Zimmerman. So I think they have the personnel to be able to trade Verlander and be comfortable. They definitely have the personnel to trade Upton and be comfortable and get good prospects back for Verlander. Maybe trade him as a package. I don't think any team could take on that salary, though. You'd probably trade them separate. But I would do everything to try and trade Upton, and then at that point you have to decide, are you going to trade? I mean, Kinsler really doesn't carry that much salary, in my opinion, so I'd keep him, and I'd keep JD 100%. I would lock JD up, because trading Verlander and trading Upton allows you to do that. So that's pretty much all I got in that situation. So now we'll officially get to football. I had two things I need to get out of the way today. Now I do. So Michigan, huge win last week. Not when it comes to impact-wise, but victory over Maryland, 59-3. Hey, I said on the show, and I think I said this to everybody who I spoke to before the game and around that week, that I thought that game was going to be pretty close. Yeah, let me reword that. I thought the game was going to be closer than thought, and I especially thought it was going to be closer for the first half, but I thought Michigan would win by probably like 21. I think I predicted the score would be 38-17, so whatever that totals out to be, at 21 actually. So that's what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be 10-10 at half, like around there, and instead it was 35-0 at half. So it's safe to say I was off in that game. I think my predictions have been rather decent this year, and I was off in that game. I was, admittedly. Michigan came out, they threw the punches, and they didn't. Nothing else happened. That was it. They just beat the water out of them. Pretty simple. There's not much stats to go over here. There is one thing I want to address with it, but if we're just talking some numbers real quick, 0 for 3 on fourth down for Maryland, and it wasn't like they were going for it in garbage time, like 4th and 30. It was 4th and 6, 4th and 1, 4th and 5, I think, and they didn't get anything on any of those. Other than that, I wouldn't say less than impressive, but Michigan's been so good on third down this season. I think they're at 29% coming in, and Maryland had just under, I think they had 48% they went 6 for 13, so around 48% on third down that game, which is better than teams have been against Michigan, but that's still, a good rate to stop them. When they have 13 third downs they need to convert on, you're doing a good job, and they only converted on 6 of them, so nothing to be strung out about there. The biggest stat, though, the biggest number is the 13 tackles for loss for Michigan. They only got 3 sacks, which is fine, which is good. But the 13 tackles for loss, those came from Ben Gideon, who had 3. An incredible game, incredible season for Ben Gideon. You think about before this season when we were talking, and the biggest problem that everybody had with Michigan's defense was, hey, they have great cornerbacks, they have great defensive backs in general, their defensive line is mean as hell, but they don't have linebackers, and that's the heart of your defense. You have to have good linebackers. And now all of a sudden we're talking about the linebackers, and they've been as good as the other 2 units, or at least as close to as good as the other 2 units as you can get. Ben Gideon is the leading tackler by a wide margin. The guy who was behind him on Saturday was Delano Hill. He had 6 total tackles. Gideon had 11, and he had 3 tackles for loss. So an incredible game for him, and a half sack, nonetheless. So he just continues to have a great season. And Mike McCray and Jabril Peppers, the other 2 linebackers, were both in the top 4. They both had 5 tackles. Each had a tackle for loss. McCray with 2. So, you just have to really look at how good those linebackers have been and credit Don Brown for how good they've been. But the story of that game was how much, not the story of the game. They won 59-3, but what a lot of people were concerned about in that game was the passing yards for Maryland. They had 289. That's more than any team has gotten on Michigan all season by a large margin, I believe. And it wasn't really garbage time, and I hate to say it because a lot of people that aren't Michigan fans might take offense to it, but if you're looking at these Maryland passing yards as significant, then you got to back off, because 53 of those yards came on one screen play at the end of the first half, and I think there was nearly around 70% of them came from dump-offs. There was no vertical pass threat at all for Maryland. Michigan shut down Maryland's run game. Now, Maryland's run game came in the number 2 rushing offense in the Big Ten behind Ohio State. They had a top 25 one in the country, and they finished with, wait for it, 78 rushing yards. So it's safe to say they're no longer number 2 in the conference. So Michigan, the way they operate is they're going to shut down one thing to allow the weakness to open. So Michigan shut down its strength, shut down Maryland's strength to allow its weakness, the passing offense, to open up. And all those 289 yards were dump-offs and screens. Because obviously when you look at the score with 3 points, none of them went for scores. So yeah, they gave up chunks of yardage, but none of them were meaningful. So they gave up chunks of yardage, but none of it was meaningful. None of it did anything towards the outcome of the game. There's numbers, but then there's the numbers that matter. And that's the side-by-side ones at the top of the scorebook. This wasn't a 10-3 game. This wasn't a 14-10 game. This was a 59-3 game. So if you're investing anything in those passing yards, then I'm sorry, my friend, but not every team is going to throw a screen on every single play. It's just not going to happen. Michigan was rushing the quarterback, getting to the quarterback, and he just dumped it off, and it worked for a few yards at a time, sometimes large margins of yardage. Best stat this team has had probably in a long time, though. 8 of the 9 teams they've played haven't walked out with their starting quarterback, or they've been pulled. That's a stat. That's not a number, but that's a stat. 8 of 9 quarterbacks have been either pulled or injured. Maryland's quarterback got injured in the second quarter by Chase Winovich, who's looking good. He'll be back for next season. Michigan State, obviously, I think 2 of their quarterbacks got hurt during the game. Hawaii's got pulled. And, you look at Sefo Lufau from Colorado obviously got knocked out. He got hit so many times. They had to pull him out of the game. So, that's a stat. 8 of 9 quarters. Your quarterback's not safe against this defensive line. And people like to make the excuse, well, if the starting quarterback is out, then how can you really consider this game a real win? That's when they looked at Colorado, because a lot of people said Sefo Lufau would have made a difference, and that game wouldn't have been as lopsided in the second half. Well, hey, if you have a good offensive line, or one that's at least decent enough to stop this Michigan D-line, then your quarterback is safe. But against Michigan, it's not. And you have to take that into effect. So that's probably one of the better stats you're going to see from any team all year in the country. 8 of 9 knocked out or pulled. So we're going to be right back. Going to go to break for a moment here. And when we get back, going to talk a little bit more about Iowa, what's going on around the country in general, and some other things as well. You guys are listening to the Justice Report on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Team Top Cat Sales. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan QB John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going to topcatteamsales.com. That's topcatteamsales.com. Also, follow Top Cat on Twitter at Team Top Cat.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Justice Report. Thanks for sticking around through that break. That's Brock Lesnar's ever so famous music coming through on the speakers, on the headphones, whatever you may be listening to this on. The Beast Incarnate, very, very important human being, very important guy. So I was just talking about Doc in the break. I was talking about my favorite favorite chain sub spot, because I think Mr. Spots is pretty much everyone's favorite normal sub place in Ann Arbor. But we're talking about chains. And I think it's a great question. So I just asked it on Twitter. Obviously, this isn't live, but I just asked it on Twitter, and I want to know, because it's a really good question. Nothing to do with football at all. But it's there's a lot of options, especially in Michigan, because there's so many. And as the replies come through, I want to evaluate, because it's very important. Now, I have a very strict policy on my favorite hot sub place, my favorite cold sub place. The best hot sub place, bar none, Penn Station. Bar none. The best cold sub place, if you ask me, probably Jersey Mike's. Best value, bang for your buck, probably also Jersey Mike's. Penn Station is probably about as expensive as it gets for a sub place. Chain sub. So we got some replies already on Twitter. I want to look at them. I want to talk about them while we're here. So far, both replies are Jersey Mike's. Jordan Heck, he works for Sporting News. He replied to me. He said Jersey Mike's mainly because of the discounts. So I did just point out that they do have some pretty good value there. You have a rewards card. And so Jordan Heck just read my mind, because Jersey Mike's has this really interesting discount thing that they have, where you have a rewards card, kind of like a Starbucks rewards card, except for you don't just load it with money, you actually get savings after savings. And I don't think you just build up points. I think it just automatically continues to give you savings upon savings. I mean, that's going to draw customers, but I think, and there's another reply from Jersey Mike's. So that's 3 in a row, Jersey Mike's. So Jersey Mike's so far the leader, and I'm going to, as the show goes on, I'll go back and look and let you guys know. So far it's Jersey Mike's at 3, everyone else 0. Some other options, though, while we're here. Penn Station, Jersey Mike's, the obvious one, Jimmy John's. I mean, there's plenty out there that are options. Quiznos is still kind of creeping in there. A newcomer in the sub game is Firehouse Subs, which they have a cheddar brisket that is fantastic, by the way. All recommended to go snag that one up. If there's any other sub places that I'm forgetting right now, can you think of any? No? I can't. I mean, there's a lot out there, but Jordan Heck, again, from Sporting News, said he gets a $2 off coupon every other week. They have Shore Points, and they have Tuesday specials. So being a Jersey Mike's Rewards member apparently pays off. Somebody else said which. You guys ever heard that? It's which, question mark. So it's which, as in which sandwich, I guess would be the word. Haven't had that yet, but I've heard good things. So I'll have to try that. And then DeBella's. Not sure what that is. I'm not too keen on things outside of Michigan, so it might not be here. Or it might be here, and I'm just really drawing a blank. But some other ones, like the Jimmy John's. I was a fan of Jimmy John's early on, but all these other ones started coming out. The obvious one is Subway, which has to be the most trash one of all. That one has to sit last place. So that, and like I said, I don't want to talk about that for too long, but as the show goes on, as the replies come through, I'll keep you guys updated. Right now, I got Jersey Mike's with 3, which with 1, and DeBella's with 1. Surprised there's no Penn Station right now. Really upset with my following, because Penn Station has got to be the best. So let's talk Iowa. A less than impressive year for the Hawkeyes, no doubt about it. And I was thinking about this the other day. Actually, this was like well before game week. This might have been 3 weeks ago. I think I was watching, let me look at the schedule real quick. I was watching Iowa's game versus, I believe it was Minnesota. Maybe it was Northwestern. It was Northwestern. Yeah, because it was the same day that Michigan played Wisconsin. So I was watching Iowa's game versus Northwestern, and I was watching CJ Beathard or however you say it, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, this guy led a team 12-0 last season. They went into the Big Ten title game, lost to Michigan State. Like men, it was a close game. As Michigan State fans would say in 2016, they lost with dignity, and it was tight, and everyone kind of underestimated Iowa for having a weak schedule and that Michigan State was going to blow them out. Wasn't the case. So I thought going into the season, okay, I don't think Iowa is what it's made up to be, but I said that all last season too, and they just kept winning. They kept winning, they kept winning, and they kept winning. And I thought, is that going to happen again? Are they going to do the same thing they did last season where I'm going to keep saying Iowa's a fluke, but then they're just going to keep winning until the end? Not the case. CJ Beathard has been bad, and that's what I was thinking about in my head watching that Northwestern game. He has to be one of the most disappointing players in the Big Ten this year. And right next to him, Desmond King. I mean, won the Thorpe Award last year, best cornerback in the country. Everyone said that he was a few notches above Jordan Lewis. I watched him get burnt, I think, 3 times last week against Penn State. I mean, Penn State put up a 41 spot on him. I think they got 2. There must have been 2 touchdowns he allowed. I think, yeah, it was 2 touchdowns he got burnt on against Penn State. I think he's still an athletic freak. I think he still is a great punt returner and a possible weapon on offense. But he's certainly not the corner he was last season. Is that because there's not as much help around him? Could be the case. Not enough pressure on the quarterback? Could be the case. But he's just not playing as well. It's clear that Jordan Lewis is the better corner now. And I still think Jordan Lewis, and I said it last year, Desmond King had the interceptions, and that's fine. Keep that stat in your back pocket, but that's not how you evaluate a good corner. That just means you get targeted a lot sometimes. The whole narrative that Malik Hooker is this fantastic defensive back, and he is, and he has a lot of picks, and that's a reason why. He's one of those guys that hasn't been targeted that much. In fact, he's a safety anyways, so kid's good. And I know a lot of people are pretty pissed off at Ohio State fans for comparing him to Jabril Peppers and saying that he's better and Jabril Peppers is a hoax. I won't go that far. I still think Peppers is better, but Hooker is really good. I'm talking about corners in general who get all these picks and people consider great. Sometimes it just means you're targeted a lot. Jordan Lewis, I think, went 4 weeks of getting targeted maybe 3 times. Quarterbacks have a 0.0 quarterback rating against him. That's fun to go up against. By the way, Jersey Mike's just got another vote, so they're at 4. So I'm looking at Iowa, and I saw a video earlier this week of what Penn State did against them, putting up that 41 spot. They ran veers with Saquon Barkley and Trace McSorley a lot that on, I think, 4 plays or 3 plays, totaled 178 yards just on those 4 designed plays. So put Jabril Peppers and Chris Evans or whomever it may be in that backfield with either Spate or another Wildcat guy and run that veer against this defense that simply can't defend it from what we've seen. It's a lot of yards going to be gained. It's a lot of yards going to be gained. You look on offense, and Iowa isn't creative. Iowa is Iowa. It's just like the state. Boring. It's vanilla. It's plain. It's green. Just like the cornfields. It's a country road offense. Runs up the middle, a handoff to the outside every now and then, and vertical throws, and throws across the middle. No creativity, no jet sweeps, nothing. They don't change. They're very conservative. They think, and I'm not saying from a mental standpoint, but if you watch the offense, it's as if they think what they're doing is working by scoring 14 points, 9 points, 7 points, 7 points. Let's look at it. Let's look at how many points Iowa has put up, okay, against teams that are halfway decent. So we're going to skip Miami of Ohio because they're terrible. We're going to skip Iowa State because they're terrible. They put up 21 on North Dakota State at home. Here's a stat for you. They put up 14 against who? Rutgers. 14. They won 14-7. They put up 14 against Minnesota. They put up 9 against Wisconsin. They put up 14 against Penn State. And then they put up 35 and 31 against Northwestern and Purdue, which I think both teams are rather bad on defense this year. So Penn State, a team that Michigan put up 49 on, held them to 14. Wisconsin, great defense, held them to 9. Can't really argue that. Minnesota, they only put up 14. Rutgers, they only put up 14. And I think everybody knows Michigan put up 78 on that team. So the matchups, they're not good in this game. If you're a Hawkeye fan, Desmond King might do a pretty decent job of covering Darbo or Chesson, whomever he covers. But from what I've seen, that number 2 corner isn't doing a good job. The defensive line, they're big. I think they have a guy who's 6'8", another guy who's 6'5" on the end. They're big, but they're not athletic. It's going to be hard for them to get around these Michigan offensive linemen, who I think have been pretty decent in pass pro this year. I think a lot better than they were last year. And the matchups, they just don't fare well. I think Jake Butt has a big day. This is a game where a tight end can really do a lot for Michigan. It's another game where a running back, kind of like a Chris Evans or a Karan Higdon, that speedy back who can run that veer. And I think Davion Smith is good, but he's kind of like a through the tackles kind of guy. He's your up the middle kind of guy. I mean, he's not going to beat anybody with speed. Chris Evans and Karan Higdon and Jabril Peppers can. And Iowa's defense isn't fast enough or athletic enough to stop a veer. We saw that last week with Penn State. So just run the ball outside, run the fakes, do the options until this game is 30-0 at half kind of game. That's what you got to do. But then you have to take into effect that this is a football game and it's college football and anything can happen. And matchups and numbers aren't always the answer. We're talking Kinnick Stadium, 8 o'clock p.m. in Iowa. Pink locker room. Hostile crowd. Could be a good one. As crazy as that crowd is, home field advantage could be very key in this game. Can it make a difference? I'm going to talk about that when we get back. You're listening to the Justice Report on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Doc and Jock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out fanaticu.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wing shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, fanaticu.com.
That was racist. I would prefer the aces. Ain't no different when you chase it. A 40 ounce to chase it. That's just an understatement. I'm early to the party, but my Rari is the latest. Somehow it seems girls in...
Welcome back to the Justice Report on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brandon Justice. You were listening to A$AP Rocky Goldie. It's a classic. I believe that one's from 2012, I think. 2012? 2013? It's an old one, but it's a good one. It's a Goldie. Kind of like an oldie. Get it? It's called... It makes sense. If you like the song, you're laughing right now. So we're talking Iowa. If you guys want to read my words in writing, you can go to land10.com. If you guys want to read my tweets, which I promise provide entertainment sometimes not. It's at Land of Justice, just like the moral value, justice, Land of Justice. You want to find the podcast and you want to see the man with the heat on Twitter, Doc, it's the Detroit Podcast, and you're listening to the podcast, so you found it. Tell your friends. Give them the link in bio, as we all say. So sauce them the link, and shout out to Brandon Brown because he hates when I say sauce, and he thinks he doesn't know what it means. So I just want to clear up that terminology just means to give. To sauce is to give. If you play hockey, you know it. To sauce, like a saucer pass. We all got it. I mean, the ones who have some sense, they know it. Doc, you know sauce, right? You know sauce. Doc knows sauce. So, with Iowa, it's tough because you don't want to say that Michigan's going to blow out another team. I mean, if you look at Michigan's schedule right now, they have won, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games by more than 40 points. Not more than 40, more than 35. And you really don't want to think, you want some entertainment is what I'm trying to say. You want something that you don't want to sweat. I mean, I'm asking you right now, hey, do you want this game to be a nail biter? No. I just want Michigan to keep rolling and cruising, says a Michigan fan. But if you're a fan of football and you want to watch Michigan compete, you want to watch this game. I heard a guy on the radio the other day. I don't think it was local. No, it was local. Yeah, I was leaving the Michigan game. It was like 12 o'clock. One of those new guys at one of the stations, he sucked. He was bad. I don't know who it was. He was not good, though. He was saying that, he didn't think that Michigan was tested yet and that, Alabama's been tested on the road and Ohio State's been tested on the road and Michigan hasn't. And they haven't had a game. He goes, I need to see Michigan get in a close game and pull it out. I'm like, so I'm thinking to myself, okay, you want Michigan to go in a really close game with Maryland or unranked Iowa or unranked Indiana, and that's going to convince you that they're good, but blowing them out continuously isn't good enough? That one's just tricky. It's tricky because now if you're trying to say, hey, I don't know if they can beat Ohio State because they haven't been battle tested on the road, that's fine. Say that. That's good because I think the same thing. But if you're saying, hey, I don't know if they can beat Ohio State or I don't know if they can win it all in general because they haven't been in a close game yet, and I need them to be in a close game. I need them to pull out a tough win. And he said the words, Wilton Speight hasn't made that comeback yet. Well, if you look at the Wisconsin game, I mean, they should have won by 23-7 if they can make a field goal. But Speight did make a throw in the fourth quarter. They did win the game by just 7, so you can count that as a close game. But take that one out of the picture. They're winning all the games, like I just mentioned, by how much. So you want them to go in a close game You don't want them to blow them out. You want every game to be, or you want 1 or 2 games to be a win by under 10 points. You want them to grind out a fourth quarter win, Big Ten football, yada, yada. And them blowing out everyone isn't good enough for you. Interesting. It's an interesting take. I've heard a lot of takes about the road games and being battle tested, and that's fine. Say that all you want because, again, I believe the same thing. But if you're going to tell me that Michigan has to be in a close game to convince you that they're a good team, come on. Come on. They're blowing out who they need to blow out, and that's how you get higher in the college football playoff rankings is by blowing teams out. It's margin of victory. They're doing what they have to do. Saying that they need to be in a close game to convince you that they're a good team who could beat Ohio State, it's just nonsense. It's nonsense. Bring up the fact that they need to be battle tested on the road, and I will applaud you and I will agree with you and we will shake hands and agree. Bring up that they need to be in a close game against an unranked team that they should blow out, I'll turn my head and say, dude, you're wrong. It's just not a good take. So I mentioned before the break, can their home field advantage, can its home field advantage do anything for Michigan, or not for Michigan, for them to beat Michigan? And I did a Q&A with Braylon Edwards on Atlanta 10 on the website on Thursday. I was trying to say it was Thursday. Couldn't think of the day of the week. On Thursday. And you can find that there. You can find it on my Twitter, his Twitter. And I asked him, I said, what do you think about this team? What do you think their chances are to win a title? Because you've been on the teams that have been on the cusp of it. You've been on Rose Bowl teams. You've been on Big Ten championship teams. And he said, and I'm not going to mention the things that he said about winning it. I'll say that after. But he brought up Iowa, and he said, hey, Iowa somehow is still in the hunt in the Big Ten West. A lot of dominoes have to fall. Wisconsin's going to have to lose again. Nebraska, I'm not sure if they'll have to lose again. Let's look. Because Iowa has 3 conference losses. So, yeah, Nebraska would have to lose again. But if Iowa wins out, actually, Iowa plays Nebraska. So if Iowa beats Michigan, beats Illinois, beats Nebraska, and Wisconsin falls, then Iowa all of a sudden is in the Big Ten title game. Or they're on the cusp of it because they might go to a tiebreaker with Wisconsin. But either way, if dominoes fall, Iowa still has a chance. So they are fighting for their lives. They're fighting. The Hawkeyes are fighting for their lives. Not only that, they're 5-4. They need to be bowl eligible. So they're fighting for that eligibility, which will probably come next week against Illinois. But, they're fighting for a lot right now. And people are kind of forgetting that. People just think Iowa's hanging their hats like they're 2-7, like another team. They're not. They're 5-4, fighting for their lives. And then Braylon brought this point up after all of that. He said, listen, everyone wants to beat the heir apparent. Michigan is the talk of the town, the talk of the nation. And what would be better than to shut them up in front of your home crowd? What would be better than the mild sauce, the mild salsa that is Kirk Ferentz, the man who moves in silence, to beat the loudest man in the country, Jim Harbaugh? How would that feel to knock off this team that's 9-0, this team that's inches away from a Big Ten title game, inches away from making it number 43? How would it feel to shut up Jim Harbaugh? If you're not from here, there's a lot of hate towards Jim Harbaugh, a lot of angst towards him in the country. I think he's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not one to say that he's bad. I'm just saying that it's a fact that a lot of people don't like him. So how would it feel to watch him fall and you be the one responsible for it? Probably pretty good. Just like the same way you'd feel if you knock off Urban Meyer and the Buckeyes, if you're a Michigan fan. Same way you felt when he knocked off D'Antonio and the Spartans. Except for it might be a little sweeter because this team is on top. Spoiler. Play the spoiler. How good would that feel? It would make this 5-4 season for Iowa a success if they can knock out Michigan. Really would. Because they're probably going to beat Illinois. And now all of a sudden they have a really good shot with Nebraska. All of a sudden they finish the year 8-4, hoping for a Wisconsin loss. They're in the Big Ten West title hunt. Probably not going to make it, but still, that puts them in a chance to make a decent bowl, go out with a bang, carry the momentum into next year, and get that big win over Michigan. Because right now, Iowa's biggest win, Minnesota. Probably Minnesota. Iowa State, they won 42-3. I guess that's their in-state rival. Iowa State's bad, but Michigan State's bad, and Michigan beat them. So I guess that's their biggest win, Iowa State, Minnesota. So if you're a Hawkeye fan, this is huge. And Braylon also said this, every game Michigan plays, it's the other team's Super Bowl right now. Because they are like I said, they are apparent, talk of the town, talk of the nation. Should be number 2. I won't dive into that. But they're a top 4 team. They're in the college football playoff. If they win, they control their own destiny. You can knock them off their high horse in front of that home crowd. That's what Iowa's fighting for. That's what that home crowd wants. That's why that home crowd's going to be so loud. That's why they're all going to come out. Even though they're 5-4, that place is still going to be rocking. That locker room is going to be extra pink. Kinnick is going to be extra loud. Kirk Ferentz is still going to be quiet because that's just who he is. And all of a sudden, Desmond King could play exactly like he did last year. CJ Beathard, however you say it, could play just like he did last year or earlier on in the season. There's a lot of things that could go wrong for Michigan in this game because of Iowa's potential that they had coming into the season and how it could all of a sudden come out in this game at home, fighting for its lives. Do I think it happens? No, I don't. I mean, yeah, I think Iowa's competitive, no doubt about it. I really think this game, and I said it last week, I'm going to say it again, probably 10-0 at half, Michigan up, maybe 10-3, 10-7, because I don't think this Iowa offense will do anything. I think this is a game that finishes, and my prediction for this game, I'll get to it in a minute, at half, I really think it's going to be like 17-3, 17-7. 17-7 would probably be accurate. It's close, it's competitive. Michigan isn't commanding, and Iowa isn't out of it. But I think matchup-wise, logically speaking, Michigan should blow them out because the matchups are all there for Michigan to dominate. Iowa's defense is not athletic. They're designed to stop an offense like Wisconsin, not an offense that can include Chris Evans, Karan Higdon, Jabril Peppers, Amar Darbo, Jay Jessen, Jake Butt. Not an offense as versatile as that. And remember, guys, Wilton Speight is playing the best ball he's played in a very long time since his days at Collegiate in Richmond, Virginia, where he played his high school ball, where also Russell Wilson played, by the way. But Wilton Spate's playing as good as he's ever played. He is. It's 100%. This offense is clicking. The offense has become as good as the defense. The defensive line is eating offensive lines like they're dinner. Ben Gideon's on top of his game. Jabril Peppers on top of his game. Jordan Lewis is locked down. The only thing that needs to be fixed is training. Stribling has to be better in run, on the run. He's been pretty bad in run defense. He's been great in pass defense, but, we saw last week in those dump-offs. So we'll shy away from run defense, just in general, in the dump-offs. It was tough for him to make a tackle. They attacked him, I think, 8 times for 100-some yards where he should have been the one making the tackle. So, yeah, that's your only problem on the defense right now is you need him to be built better. But look at Delano Hill. Ever since he got that unsportsmanlike conduct against Michigan State, that really was thought to change the momentum of that game. I think he finished with 13 tackles that game after that terrible start in the first quarter, and then he had 6 tackles in the last game, including a tackle for loss, half a tackle for loss. That totaled second on the team. So, yeah, matchup-wise, Michigan should dominate. Logically, Michigan should dominate. If you want me to speak from my mind, Michigan probably wins big. Probably 48-10, 41-10, 38-10, around there. But let's take into effect that there's a crowd that's very hostile, a locker room that's very pink, and for some reason, that always intimidates. A team in Iowa that should come out hungry to knock off the heir apparent. I do think Michigan wins. I really do. But I think Iowa shows a little bit of why they were good last season. I think Michigan wins this one 38. Let's go 41-21. I know Iowa putting up 21 points on defense, bad. Again, I think there is a lot of momentum in this game for Iowa. I really do. I think Michigan pulls away with a couple touchdowns in the fourth quarter. But I really think this game is like 31-21 and going into the fourth. Because this defense, it's starting to wear down a little bit. It's starting to get tired. It really is. It's the end of this is the road test. This is where they're going. You want this to happen now, though, and I want to make that clear. You want them to show that they're a little wore down, a little bit tired. You want that to show now. You want that to show against Iowa, not against Ohio State, not against an offense as versatile as Indiana either. You want it to show against Iowa because that's a game that you can win with them being like that. Ohio State is not. 41-21 is what I'll go with. That's my best guess for this one. It really is. As far as recruiting, which is how I always end the show, no guest list obviously this week because they're not at home. They're on the road, which has been rare this season. But there are some targets that are going elsewhere. Donovan Peoples-Jones going to Florida. Gators look to be the biggest threat to Michigan in that race. I wouldn't invest too much into it as far as Michigan losing out on him. I really am confident that Michigan gets him. About 70% right now, I'd say. But the Gators are the biggest competition. I think they always have been. I think that's pretty well known. It's not breaking news or anything like that. A lot of positivity on Aubrey Solomon right now, and that's for good reason. The 4-star defense tackle formerly committed to Michigan, decommitted in August. A lot of positivity. The visit went great. From what we know, I think they get him now, where I never thought that was going to happen a few weeks ago because it was so negative at that point. Alabama, Georgia's still after him, but I really think Michigan gets him, which probably closes the door on J2 Fele, who's now going to visit for the Ohio State game. Look ahead to the Indiana game next week. You'll have some good visitors with Isaiah Wilson visiting for the Indiana game. 4-star offense tackle out of Brooklyn, Poly Prep. Dude's massive. I think he's 6'7". Also commit Benjamin St. Just will be on hand for that game. He's from Canada. He's taking his Virginia Tech visit the week after that. Actually, no. So the week after that, he'll be taking his Virginia Tech official visit, which will be against Virginia. That's on November 26th. That's the week of the Michigan-Ohio State game. But he'll be visiting Michigan for the Indiana game. next week. I don't think he flips to Virginia Tech. I really don't see that happening, but that's who's visiting next week. And then also, Michigan's getting a 3-star defensive lineman, Rucker Reitmeyer. He's going to come for the Indiana game. I don't know if there's anything to that. He's a 3-star, so with Aubrey Solomon on the board, I'm sure they'll take him over him. And then there's also Dylan Harris, 2018 linebacker from, I think he's from Cheshire Academy, same one as Tarek Black and Brandon Sebastian, 2 guys who have offers. And then the big one is 5-star running back Cam Akers. He's going to be coming. Here's the thing. He is a huge target for Florida State, huge target for Ole Miss, huge target for Alabama. Michigan's kind of sitting towards the bottom there for him, and that's because of Najee Harris. It really is. I mean, I don't think Michigan really would take him knowing that Najee Harris is still a chance. And Cam Akers is an early enrollee. I think Najee Harris backed out of his early enrollee status, so he'll stay in school, possibly to make sure he makes the right decision because, Michigan came in creeping on Bama. So Cam Akers coming 5-star, but again, I don't know that they want him. I don't know if he wants Michigan. I think they sit towards the bottom 5, but a good visit. All of a sudden, you got 2 5-stars looking close at you. I'm not going to say no to that, but you have 3 running back commits right now, which I'm looking back on those 3 running back commits, and I'm thinking, you might not have wanted to take in one of those. You might want room to take on 4 running backs instead of only being able to take on 1 more now because you're at 3 instead of 2. Because you look at, Benjamin, a kid from Wiley, Texas, 4-star running back, tweets all the time about Michigan. He committed to Iowa over Michigan back in the day, a few months ago. I think it was back in June, maybe May, April, around there. And now he's decommitted from Iowa. They've parted ways, not even considering them. I think 100% he wants to go to Michigan. 100% I think he does. But now it's up to the fact if they want him. I think he's better than all 3 of the running backs committed right now. A.J. Dillon's really good. I think he's my favorite of the 3. But I think Benjamin has proven that he is as good or better than all 3. I think better. I would lean towards better than as good. He's obviously as good. He's playing in the Army Bowl. That's where he'll commit. Looks like it might be Arizona State if Michigan doesn't want him, which would be great for the Sun Devils because I think Benjamin's a hell of a running back. So that's what I got today for the Meritocracy Mashup, the recruiting roundup. That's what we call it, Meritocracy Mashup, merry-go-round, whatever you want to call it. If you guys have any questions for me about recruiting, you can go to @AtlantaJustice on Twitter. Ask me anything. Usually good to answer. DMs are open. You can ask me reasonable things. Don't ask me who's silently committed. I'm not going to answer that, obviously. If there's any silent commits, of course. So, other than that, not much recruiting news. I mean, it's a boring week. It's a bye week. Or not bye week. It's an away week. Nobody on the guest list. But that's what we got for recruiting today. So, Michigan over Iowa is my pick. And now we have to shift over to my 5 games of the week. Favorite way to end the show. Very intense. A lot of hot takes. And guess what, guys? Ask Doc. Doc's here for confirmation. Do I ever check this before, or do I just wing it? I just wing it. He confirmed. Thumbs up. So we're looking at my 5 games of the week. Mississippi State takes on Alabama. Mississippi State knocked off Texas A&M. Not one of the 5. Just wanted to point out that game is probably going to be Alabama 70 million. Mississippi State, not as much, because Texas A&M isn't as good as everyone worked them up to be. And I said that earlier. I want to point out that I did pick Arkansas to beat Florida in my upset last week, and it happened. So toot my own horn there. Good stuff. All right, let's take a look at what we got, folks. Ole Miss, Texas A&M. Right away, I'm looking at that one. 7:30. The Aggies somehow still number 10. I mean, they lost to Mississippi State and they dropped back 4 spots. So that's interesting. I like Ole Miss in this game by 17. Is that Kyle Field? I don't care. Ole Miss is the best unranked team in the country. They beat A&M by 17. A&M drops back to probably 12 after that one, the way these rankings work. So let's move on from that. Again, guys, that's at 7:30, so I know you'll probably only get to watch the first half hour, and you'll flip over to Michigan, Iowa. But nonetheless, one to check out. Let's arrow over to LSU, Arkansas. Arkansas knocked off Florida last week. Arkansas, another one of those unranked teams that are pretty good. Still think the SEC is a very good conference. I like the Tigers in this one. I like Arkansas. I really like Arkansas. But this game, it's in Arkansas. It's in Fayetteville for another week. Tough one. I like Arkansas by a field goal late. 17-13. 17-14, I mean. At 17-14, they win on a field goal. Arkansas all of a sudden gets back in the top 25. 6-3, not a bad team. Somehow LSU is 5-3 and 19. Arkansas is 6-3 and not ranked. I mean, there's probably something on the schedule that caused that I don't know about because I don't pay attention that much to the SEC, unranked teams and how they lose or win. So those are your first 2. Let's arrow over to West Virginia and Texas. A lot of family down in West Virginia. That's where my grandma's from. That's where all my family's from. On her side, a lot of Mountaineers down there, both literal and fans. Tough to pick against West Virginia. The defense has been really good this season. Texas has been very up and down, but they've won the big ones. You know, they've beaten Notre Dame, which at the time was big, obviously not now. They've knocked off some good teams. They knocked off Who they knock off? Baylor. Knocked off Baylor, which I don't think is very good anyways, but came close to Oklahoma as well. Barely lost in the shootout, but Texas and West Virginia. This one's in Austin. It's tough, man. It's really tough. I like West Virginia's defense. I really do. I'll take Texas by 7. By 7. Texas by 7. Charlie Strong just somehow wins the big one, saves his job, and he has to stay another year. Unfortunately for him, because I heard it's pretty tough to stay there. He's 5-4 right now, though, so maybe that's still not enough, but we'll see. So that's my third one. My fourth one, I'm going with Oklahoma State, Texas Tech. I don't think Oklahoma State's all they're worked up to be. I like the Red Raiders' offense. Their defense is terrible. I'll take the Cowboys in this one by 10. And finally, the last one of the day. Here's my pick for this one. I really like this game. I really, really, really like this game. USC and Washington. This one is in Seattle. Really tough stadium to play in. Really tough stadium to win in. Obviously, Washington undefeated at home. They're undefeated overall, 9-0. USC came out and beat Colorado a few weeks ago in a tight one. That one was in LA, obviously, but it's still a big win for them. And with Washington State, I think Washington, I think they are what they're worked up to be. I don't think they've played anybody yet. They really haven't had that hard of a schedule, besides Utah, which was a good one. I think Jake Browning's really good. I think Ross at receiver is really good. Defense is underrated. I mean, they're pretty good too. I don't think USC will win, but I think this is at least somewhat of a decent game. Juju Smith-Schuster and Adoree Jackson are two really, really good players, and I'm talking really, really good. Adoree Jackson would be a Heisman contender if USC was at all decent. USC is fighting for its top 25 ranking. I think there's still a chance for them to win their division in the Pac-12, but they got to beat Washington. So they're hungry. Washington's trying to stay nationally relevant, trying to stay in that top 4, trying to stay in the playoff picture. I like Washington in a tight one. I like them 48-34, so by 14, but tighter than all the other games. So that's my 5. Washington over USC, Ole Miss over A&M. That's my upset. I like Oklahoma State over Texas Tech, and Texas over West Virginia. And my 5th one was, can't remember. I don't know. But those were the 4. Oh, Arkansas over LSU. That was the 5th one. Like I said, guys, this is all in the wing. It's all winging it. Another one to look out for is Baylor, Oklahoma, 25-9. I think Oklahoma blows them out. I really don't like Baylor at all this season. Pitt might give Clemson a game. James Conner. Pat Narduzzi, obviously the head coach over at Pitt. I was tempted to pick that one as one of the 5. We'll add it on as an extra and just make the prediction. I like Clemson by... Where's that? Ooh, it's in Clemson. They performed worse there, it seems. Clemson by 10. Clemson by 17. Clemson by 17. All right, guys. Well, that is my picks for the week. We did a little extra, a little 6. Gave you a little social issue talk in the beginning. Became your social issues teacher for a minute there. Gave you my take as a 20-year-old in his first election, which was terrible, by the way. But I did vote, and I encourage all of you to continue to vote when all these elections come. It's very easy. No line. Walked right through. Really easy to vote in 2016. And I got Michigan over Iowa, 41-21. And I will see you guys next week when they play Indiana. Hell of a guest list, so we'll be talking recruiting a lot that week. And I look forward to talking to you guys then. Any questions that you have, at Atlanta Justice, at Detroit Podcast. Guys, that was the Justice Report, and we'll see you guys next week.
Who's got it better than us?